Number 10. Forgotten Lambo. Rotting inside of a storage barn for over 30 years was a Lamborghini Espada recently uncovered by a guy named Johnny Smith. The owner of the car, as well as the owner of the land on which the car had been stored, died just recently. When the new owners of the property showed up, they found the Lamborghini hidden inside the barn and called Johnny to help with an appraisal. The odometer read only 4,500 miles, 7,242 kilometers, which is basically nothing for a Lamborghini from the 70s. It was also found to be in perfect condition. However, with the original owner of the car long gone, nobody has an explanation as to how it wound up in the middle of sheep country in England. Lamborghinis aren't exactly popular in England in the first place, and this one was locked up in a barn in a place about as rural as it gets. As for the car itself, only about 1,200 Espadas were built between 1968 and 1978. It was described at the time as the Rolls-Royce of Lamborghini for being more comfortable than most GTs. We don't know if this thing even runs, if anybody's actually going to make any money off of it, or if it'll just end up rotting in the barn for another 30 years. After all, who would want to buy a car that had mice breeding in its trunk? Number 9. Spanish space trash. Residents of the small countryside town of Murcia had a bit too much excitement recently when a bizarre object showed up from out of nowhere. A pair of shepherd brothers tending to their flocks were the first to stumble upon the mysterious abandoned object. They'd never seen anything like it before, measuring about 3 feet, 1 meter in diameter, and wrapped in some kind of strange black material. They know it must have dropped out of the sky, so they got a hold of the local authorities, and then they sent the civil guard to investigate. They activated their protocols for nuclear, radiological, and bacteriological threats. They thought it could be some kind of deadly military device accidentally dropped out of an airplane. However, the mysterious object turned out to be nothing more than a piece of space trash from either a rocket or a satellite. According to the civil guard in Spain, it was most likely an auxiliary fuel tank. Number 8. Scraps of the Cacapo shipwreck. The Cacapo was a British steamship built in 1898 commanded by Captain P. Nicolason. The Cacapo came to a horrible end on her maiden voyage. The ship was on its way from Wales in the United Kingdom to Sydney in Australia. She was due to stop halfway in Cape Town on May 25, 1900, but before she ever made it, she got stuck in a ferocious gale and was pushed ashore onto Nordhook Beach. Nobody died in the crash, but the vessel never sailed again. It got stuck right there on the beach with the crew unable to get her back into the water. They had no choice but to leave the ship where she lay. 120 years later, the Cacapo is still there in the sand. Not much remains of the ship other than a few scraps of her broken hull and some fragments of the boilers. The beach is now a tourist destination for kite flying and horse riding. But if you look hard enough along the beach, you may just find pieces of the Cacapo shipwreck jutting up from the sand. Number 7. Vintage games. A couple of youngsters on YouTube made a shocking discovery when they let themselves into an abandoned house and discovered a collection of ancient video games worth over $100,000. The house itself was infested with cockroaches, there was trash everywhere, and the whole place looked like it was rife with disease. According to the treasure hunters, the place had been abandoned for at least 20 years. It was due to be demolished just days after they went searching for collectibles. They made the major discovery in a back room where somebody had left their video game stash and never bothered to go back for it. They found vintage titles from the PlayStation 2, the Nintendo GameCube, and the Xbox 360. Obviously, this stuff wasn't ancient, and a lot of it was covered in rat feces, but there were some real gems. There were Blockbuster videotapes, they found a PS1 copy of Tomba, and somebody even got bitten by a spider while trying to pack all the video games out of the derelict home. What would you do if you came across such an impressive collection of old video games? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. Meteorite in the bedroom. Ruth Hamilton was lying in bed in her house in the beautiful city of Golden, British Columbia. She was fast asleep and it was the middle of the night. She suddenly woke up to the sound of her dog barking. Seconds later, there was a massive explosion and shrapnel fell all over her face. She rolled out of bed and flicked on the lights, not having any clue what was going on. She actually reached for her phone and called 911. When the cops arrived at Ruth's house, no crime had been committed. There were no intruders and nobody had tried to blow her house up. Instead, they found a meteorite lying on the pillow right next to where Ruth had been sleeping. A space rock had literally crashed through her ceiling and landed on the pillow beside her head. Had the space rock been a bit to the left, just a few inches, it would have obliterated her face. Just to make sure this was indeed a meteorite, Ruth and the police reached out to students at the Western University in London. They confirmed 100% that it was definitely a space rock that crashed through Ruth's ceiling. Plus, witnesses in town had seen the explosion made by the meteorite in the seconds before it smashed into her house like a small fireball exploding in the sky. Rather than sell the space rock, Ruth plans to keep it once the university students are done analyzing it. Number 5. Treasure in a drawer. When a British couple wandered into an abandoned country home near the border of the Scottish Highlands, they never imagined they would be walking out with over $1 million. They were looking for valuables, antiques in particular, that they could sell at an auction house. When they opened up the drawer of an old cabinet, they came across a small ceramic plate. On the plate was a picture of the biblical scene of Samson and Delilah painted beautifully. At first, they thought it was just an ordinary decorative plate, but something told them to take it. So they took the plate, left the abandoned house, and brought it to an antique expert. As it turned out, it was a hand-painted relic from the famous Italian ceramicist Nicola de Urbino, created around the year 1520. This was a real historical relic. When they took it to auction, the bidding organizers estimated that it would fetch them up to around $140,000. That's pretty good on its own. But when they finally took their plate to auction, they ended up walking away with $1.7 million. A curious trip to an abandoned house set this British couple up with cash for the rest of their lives. Number 4. Artifacts in an alligator. The last place you'd expect to find a collection of abandoned artifacts is inside the belly of an animal. But in Mississippi, that's exactly what Shane Smith discovered. Shane owns Red Antler Processing in Yazoo City and is no stranger to digging through animal guts. When he brought in a 13.5-foot, 4-meter alligator, one of the first things he had to do was check out the contents of its stomach. Amazingly, not only did Shane find the usual mixture of bones and animal remains, he also found a pair of Native American artifacts dating back thousands of years. One of the artifacts is a hunting tool, something like an ancient fishing lure. The other artifact is a projectile point which could have been used on the end of a spear as a hunting dart or even as an arrow tip. Seeing as Native Americans have been inhabiting Mississippi for the past 12,000 years, it's no surprise that some of the artifacts got lost in the Mississippi River. The alligator must have accidentally slurped them up while hanging out on the riverbed, totally by accident. Scientists don't know exactly how long they were in the alligator's stomach, as the reptile was about 100 years old when it died. But what they do know is that the artifacts go back at least 4,000 years to before Europeans ever set foot in North America. Number 3. Monolith on the beach. Back in 2020, everyone was talking about the Utah monolith, the mysterious metallic structure that appeared in a park in Utah like something out of a science fiction movie. But what nobody was talking about was the exact same monolith that was left abandoned on the Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom. The strange mirrored structure was simply left on the beach, where locals stumbled upon it and were shocked. The first person to discover the monolith was Alexia Fishwick, who described herself as dumbstruck when she came across the magical totem. After she took photographs of the monolith and went home, she posted them on social media. She was immediately called a liar, and people said the pictures were photoshopped. But as more and more people came across the monolith, it became obvious that the object was real. So what was this abandoned monolith? Shortly after the Utah monolith, an organization called the Most Famous Artist took credit for the creepy art installation. But this one was just a prank put out on the beach by an ordinary guy named Tom Dumford. It was actually removed by the National Trust and then put up for sale on eBay. Number 2. Prehistoric ski. Archaeologists discovered somebody's missing ski on the top of a mountain in Norway. The first ski was found 7 years ago, and ever since the experts have been trying to track down the second ski. It was 2014 when archaeologists with the Secrets of the Ice program made the bizarre discovery. 1,300 years before today, an ancient person was skiing up in the mountains when they abandoned one of their wooden skis. It got stuck in the ice, where it remained buried until the world started to heat up and the ice started to melt. Archaeologists say the ski was in an amazing state of preservation, still with its bindings of birch rope and leather straps attached. Naturally, archaeologists wanted to know where the second ski was. Unless the first one belonged to a one-legged Viking, there must have been a second ski. And in September of 2021, a second ski was found just 16 feet from where the first one was. The second ski is a little larger, though the two definitely could have been a pair. The big issue now is trying to figure out why the skis were abandoned in the first place. Did the skier die, get injured, or get carried away by a giant prehistoric bird? Number 1. Abandoned space capsule. What appeared to be an abandoned space capsule caused quite a commotion on the side of the highway in Arizona near Casa Grande. People driving by were shocked to see a space vehicle just lying there in the dirt. It was so shocking that some Arizona residents grabbed their phones and called 911. People reported to the police that there was an extraterrestrial dropship in the desert, that a space capsule had fallen from the sky, and all kinds of other crazy nonsense. The police had no choice but to do something about the mysterious object. They got the Department of Public Safety to send one of their officers to investigate. What they found wasn't a space capsule or an abandoned alien ship. It was actually a drum from a cement truck that had been painted to look just like a space capsule. This was done by an artist named Jack Millard, 53 years old, from Scottsdale. He'd been driving from Phoenix to Tucson when he discovered the abandoned cement mixer beside the interstate and decided to repurpose it as a space capsule. It took him only 2 days to complete the project, turning an abandoned piece of junk into a piece of art. It's just too bad everyone in Arizona assumed it was an alien invasion and called the police. What's the craziest thing you've ever found abandoned? Let us know in the comments down below, and thanks a lot for watching the video. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time right here on American Eye.